Long ago, 5 men set out from their own paths to achieve their own destinies. Now they are brothers, united under one cause. Alone they are strong, together they are unbreakable. They are bonded by metal.
Welcome back to Bonded by Metal, and here we are with yours truly, Nick Weiser, aka Toxic Nick, and Imperitus on my left, and we're gonna do something new. We have talked about doing stuff like this for a long time before we made Bonded by Metal a channel.
We have.
But
Going
this
on like
time,
3 years now.
we finally are putting this into fruition, and I'm glad we really committed to this. So it was very timely too, and that's kind of like honestly the main reason why I kind of like got serious about this idea. So for those of you somehow not in the know, if you're watching this channel, the thrash metal band Testament had their 13th album coming out this week titled Parabellum, which we will do a review for that album as well. However, I decided, and this was something me and Imperitus made a good executive decision on, not to include that album for this because recency bias. You always kind of look at things a little bit differently.
It's kind of hard
when
to
the
also
hype dies down.
It's also kind of hard to rank something when you've only heard two tracks off of it.
Yeah, well, we would wait till we heard it and then
yeah.
But
I mean, I finally heard Shadow People today. I was like, okay,
Mhm.
that's got a bit more of that Testament vibe than the first song I heard. But
So
we'll save that.
Yeah, so I want it to be, when the hype dies down, you can judge things a bit more objectively. It's been 5 years since Titans of Creation came out.
Wow.
And yeah, right. Time flies. So I figured let's do these 12 albums. And for those of you wondering, as a viewer, no, we are not doing First Strike Still Deadly. For me, this is about doing the albums of original studio material, not a live album, not a re-record. This is original material without having to deviate from any of that.
I will make a comment about First Strike Still Deadly. That album's fucking fantastic. But it's not, as Nick said, it's not a mainline release. It's a re-recording. But you can't really say there's any bad track on that album because they picked the best of the best of the best of their albums. But as he said, we are not ranking that. That's just me throwing my 2 cents in about that album because I absolutely dig it. So,
well, with that all said, this guy on my left is Imperitus. How are you, sir?
Oh, I am fantastic. I had a good day today. Been looking forward to this for, 3-ish years now. Not so much this specific thing, but we've talked. And trust me, folks, me and Nick are going to slowly but surely introduce you to the ways and of the various styles of metal that exist.
Oh, yeah.
And in the process, both myself and Nick will discover new bands as well.
Oh, yeah, that's true. We'll do that. And we had such fun doing this that we're definitely going to do more of these lists as well. This definitely seems like, once again, a very timely thing to do. And I had fun. It seems like he had fun. We've been texting each other back and forth on this. This is a really awesome journey to go through. And I think this is the first time I've actually gone through a band's discography within the sum of a month for a band that has, of course, a lengthy discography.
Yes.
But that all said, Imperitus, are you ready to rank these Testament albums?
Absolutely.
All right, so we're going to start off with the first album. So for those of you somehow not in the know, Testament were once called Legacy. Then they changed their name to Testament. So, of course, it was a hand-in-glove fit, unlike O.J. Simpson, that they named their first album appropriately titled The Legacy. Now, this album, The Legacy, obviously, it's a strong debut. And for me, this album, what really stands out about this album is Chuck's vocals. That was really, I was like, whoa, okay, this is big. The riffs are killer, they're catchy, tons of memorable songs. And for me, the big standout in this album, in my opinion, is Alone in the Dark. That would be my number one song of the album. And for me, I'm going to rank it as number 4. Imperitus, what are your thoughts and what is your ranking on this album?
Like you said, The Legacy, it's one of those albums, at least for me, that I could definitely say that it's all killer, no filler. I don't say that often. You've talked to me plenty of times about albums and bands, and it's not often I say that.
No, you don't.
Alone in the Dark is such a fantastic song. You can't, it's just also an album that has a thrash anthem in Over the Wall.
Killer song.
Oh my God. Every time I've seen Testament live, the place goes nuts when they play that. And maybe it's just my neck of the woods, but that's been my experience every time. You got that, Burnt Offerings, Haunting. Yeah, that album, it's a thrash classic. It really and truly is. For me, that's that's my number 2.
Number 2, he says. Okay, killer. Awesome. So he's at number 2. I'm at number 4. That is The Legacy. Well, let's transition then to the follow-up album, The New Order. For me, I'm going to go with number 2, actually, for this album. So the heaviness is a bit on par. I feel like for me, the songwriting is actually, for me, the songwriting is a bit improved. I'd even make the argument there's even more hookiness to this album because the heaviness is still maintained. But I love that the hooks are there. And of course, you had the controversy because of a band called Lamb of God ripped off Laid to Rest with Into the Pit and that whole scenario in 2004. And that was a whole scenario. But that said, though, Into the Pit's still a killer song.
Yes, it is.
I'm not really wild about the Aerosmith cover. I actually like the Aerosmith original, but that all said, I love the rest of the album so much so that I was even able to rank it at number 2. Now, my favorite song, I'm going to have to go with the title track. I know it's easy, and I know it's like the convenient thing because they do play it live and it's quote-unquote a hit, but there's just something about it.
Compared to some of the other tracks on that album, though, that's actually kind of not your standard pick.
That's just something that resonates with me a bit more. So that's why I'm choosing it as my song. But Imperitus, what is your ranking and your thoughts on The New Order?
There's going to be a bit of nostalgia bias for me because that was the first album I heard from them.
Oh, okay.
I remember a good friend of mine at the time, his older brother found I was into metal, and he let me check out Overkill albums and Death Angel and Dark Age, some of the more thrashier stuff. And this was the first album I heard, and when you got songs like Disciples of the Watch, I mean, that song is so just... The Preacher.
The Preacher!
And you mentioned the Aerosmith cover, and a quick little funny anecdote about that, having a bit of a get-together at my house a number of years ago, just people just coming over, going to cook some food and hang out, drink some beers. And I go near the radio, my 2 friends that were over were big prog heads. And they're like, hey, no, get the hell away from that. We do not trust you with music. I was like, oh. But as the song that was on was, because I just grabbed one of the metal station on my TV. Remember when TVs would have music stations like that?
Music choice.
Yeah. And I fired up the metal one. And he goes, hey, my one buddy's like, hey, go back to that. And his wife is just scowling at this point. He's like, no, that's Aerosmith. Whatever band that is, I was like, that's Testament. He goes, whatever band that is, they're covering an Aerosmith song, and they're covering a good Aerosmith song. No, that can stay on. Because that's not that bad compared to what he normally listens to. Thanks. My friends, they love me. Trust me.
What a ringing endorsement.
Yeah. But yeah, this album is so good. And again, nostalgia bias, and I'm putting it at number 1.
Oh,
because this is the album that turned me into a Testament fan.
Okay. Killer. Wow, you heard it here, guys. Early and right off the bat. Number 1 for
and number 2.
New Order. Yeah, right. We got the top 2 for him out of the way. So
are you really surprised though, considering it's me?
No.
Now we start getting into the interesting territory.
Yes, this is where it's gonna get really fun. So number 3 is Practice What You Preach. And so for me, Practice What You Preach, this is where it gets funnier for me. It's a 3rd album, but for me, it's number 3 in my rankings. I actually love this album in really high regard, like really high. So obviously, for my reasoning here, first off the bat, it's a more melodic, more accessible album, but there's still some heavy guitar intact. You still got the Acclaim line together. It's obvious at this point they have got a bit of a reputation now in terms of being a band that's got eyes on them, and obviously they're capitalizing on their success, trying to be a bit more accessible. However, there are still great tunes like Nightmare Coming Back to You, Confusion Fusion, Greenhouse, the fact that it still had the signature Testament oomph to it. Of course, the title track, which they play a lot. Now, for me, my actually favorite song is Sins of Omission. I feel like the lyrics hit the most home for me. I feel like they're some of Chuck Billy's best lyrics he's ever written. And he got some of the most amazing solos in that song, like ever. To me, that's a perfect song, if you will. The only thing I didn't understand, but was kind of funny, and it's something that like is a deal breaker for me, is that there's a ballad on the album called The Ballad. I was like, they're probably like, I don't know what we're gonna call it. We'll just call it The Ballad. Fuck it.
I have a
name.
theory as to why that is.
Yeah.
That they were on Atlantic. And they're a big major label. What was popular at the time, Practice What You Preach came out. Power ballads. Therefore, you need to put one on here. So then pretty much going as a fuck you to Atlantic, they just called it The Ballad.
Do you think that was them having to do an obligation, or do you think that was just something that they wanted to do, or do you think it was somewhere in between? Because
somewhere in between, I think, because they continued that.
Oh yeah, going for it, absolutely. So, anyways, Imperitus, your ranking and your thoughts on Practice What You Preach.
To me, and some people are going to sit there and go, "Yep, that's definitely Imp's take." I think this was the beginning of the label having a little bit, shall we say, overt influence. I could be wrong. I mean, I've talked to Chuck Billy a couple times in person, but I never said, "Hey, how bad did Atlantic fuck you over when it came to being creative?" But I still like the album. Like you said, Sins of Omission is a killer track. You know, the title track, again, is another one that people go apeshit for when they play live.
Mm-hmm.
It's not their heaviest album, as you said.
No.
There's another one we're getting to that surpasses this in that factor.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe, like you said, it was them wanting to become more accessible. But I don't know. Again, I think it's probably somewhere in between that they went a little too far with being accessible. Because the stuff you mentioned is there. It's just buried a bit more. So for me, this is actually my number 6.
Oh wow! I actually thought it was gonna be lower for you. I'm not even joking. Okay, that's actually high for you. That's actually high considering the big catalog.
Yeah. Well, you know, and I do have my taste, and as a note to people who aren't familiar with me, I am very much of the death and black metal with a whole lot of folk metal. Mm-hmm. But my main love growing up, and even once I started discovering other styles, was thrash, because it's what I grew up listening to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, let's get to album number 4 then, shall we? So the 4th album is called Souls of Black, and this obviously has a very popular title track. For me, this is ranking at number 8. So obviously they're continuing their melodic approach. To me, the songs are good. They're good. To me, it's the problem where they're just not as good as some of the albums that they came before. Now, that said, though, my favorite song on here is Love to Hate. It's easy for people to talk about the title track, but Love to Hate for me is a really strong song. It's also got a great closer on the album as well. And it's kind of funny, too, that this album has a song on there called The Legacy, even though their previous name was Legacy and their first album was called The Legacy, but it took their 4th album to have a song called The Legacy. So funny how, and then to remember, The Preacher was on the New Order, but it took for them to have an album called Practice What You Preach to be the 3rd. So they're just shuffling these words around with these titles. It's pretty funny to see. But yeah, for me, this is number 8. I like it. I think it's a good album. I feel like it's just the only thing holding it back is just it's not as strong as the stuff that comes before it and after even. So where are you at, Imperitus?
Souls of Black is an interesting one for me because when that came out, I had just started digging into the death metal scene. Like just scraping at the fringes, shall we say. So, but when it came out, I was like, oh, all right, you know, more Practice What You Preach. But then I listened to it a couple more times. I would say it's actually a little heavier even than Practice.
Ooh, that's interesting. Okay, I didn't get that, but go on.
to me, maybe it's the production they used. And as we do more videos like this, you will hear me bitch about or praise the production of an album, which is funny. I listen to black metal, and you know how some old school black metal gets.
Toilet sounds, garbage sounds.
Hey, we recorded this on a 4-track in an attic. Yeah, we can tell. Yay, Dark Throne. Some of my favorite tracks, as cliche as it is, I do love the title track.
Naturally.
It's got such a punch to it. For one of their more mid-paced songs, even of that time, that song has a lot of punch to it, especially live. Also kind of big fan of Bass in the Sky.
Oh, I actually like that song, yeah.
Yeah, it's got some cool stuff on it. It's not as bad, in my opinion. And when I say bad, I'm not saying Practice What You Preach is a horrible album by any stretch of the imagination. But Falling Fast is also really good. 7 Days of May as a closer.
It's a good closer.
Yeah. So to me, it stands out more than Practice. It was almost like they were trying to experiment a little bit with Practice, and they said, yeah, that didn't work. Let's add a little bit of heaviness back to it and see how that does. So, because I remember at the time, the friends, older brothers or friends that were metalheads didn't like either this album or Practice. They were not happy with either of them. So
it's really weird. It's really interesting that with Practice they play the title track and occasionally Sins of Omission. But since I started seeing the band live in 2008, all the shows I've seen and know of, and granted there could be an outlier that I'm missing, it only seems like they played the title track off of Souls of Black, which I actually feel like, even though I don't feel as strongly about this album as others, I actually still wish I heard more songs from this album.
I've heard them play Malpractice.
What years?
I would say around the years of like The Gathering.
Okay, well, easier for them to do then, back when 99, 2000. But nowadays in the 21st century, with so many more albums out since then, they've only played the title track.
Well, yeah, but generally speaking, with Souls, when seeing them live, though, seeing them and they play something off Souls of Black or Practice, it's the title tracks and then maybe one other song. I've heard Malpractice once off Souls of Black. And one time my buddy was like, wow, they're playing Souls of Black. They never play that. I'm looking at him like, what?
They always play that.
But there was a point in time when they didn't.
Wow, that's crazy. So that was way back in the day.
Sins of Omission I have heard, and I have also heard once or twice Greenhouse Effect.
I've heard Greenhouse Effect in the recent times. Okay, so
so they do, but again, there was a period of time, and I think it was during that period of time, right before. I'm trying to remember what time period. I think Lower Demonic was out when my buddy said that, so that doesn't really. I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, Souls of Black was their last album. Why wouldn't they play that title track? Every time I've seen them, they played it. So, and again, the crowd went wild for it.
To me, the only time I don't see them play it nowadays is if they're like opening for a band, because they got 12 albums, they got cut down like 7 or 8 songs. But anytime they're headlining, and I've seen them headline twice.
Every gig I've seen them play was they were the headliner.
I've seen them 3 times as a headliners, and they always play that song. So
yeah, so I think it's a matter of what tour you're seeing them on, what the position on the bill is. Is it a side gig? Because the venue I used to go to that doesn't do anything anymore, a lot of bands would play there on their way to somewhere else. It would never be listed. Like, you bought the tour shirt 8 out of 10 times that place wasn't on the back with all the dates.
Oh, so you're like the warm-up gig before the tour.
No, they'll be in the middle of the tour, but
the middle of the tour. Okay.
Because, not to dox myself, and I'm really not, I live in between New York City and Albany, New York.
Oh, wow.
So they need to be going up to play in Albany, or heading up to Canada, or out into Western New York, going to Buffalo or Syracuse or Rochester or something like that.
Okay.
But we did get actual tours come through. Sometimes we'd have like the headliner band and one other band from that tour come and play. and then a bunch of local bands, or we'd get the whole tour come through. Like when Cannibal Corpse would come through, we'd get that entire tour.
Well, okay then. Well, shall we get to the ritual?
Yeah, we have to.
We do have to. So the ritual is the 5th album, and for me, this is number 11 for me. So obviously, the ritual is notable for a few things in more ways than one. This is the last album with the quote unquote acclaimed lineup. You have Chuck Billy, Eric Peterson, Alex Skolnick, Greg Christian, Louis Clemente. Now, I wouldn't call this album a sellout album, but it's basically Testament playing more, I guess you could say, traditional heavy metal with some hard rock tendencies and absolutely zero thrash. And I've tried to even look at this album with the idea of what if I heard this, but with a different band name, would I appreciate it? Because there are albums where I'm not fond of from a band, but if I threw a different name on it in my mind, could I appreciate it at least a little bit? Yes. I can't say that with The Gathering, like at all.
You mean the ritual?
So that's what I meant, the ritual. Sorry. Yeah, thank you.
Their album titles, some of their album titles do get overlapped rather easily. The Ritual, The Legacy, The Gathering.
Yeah. So with The Ritual, my favorite song was actually very shockingly, for me, was Electric Crown. I know it's the one that they play live once again, but after going back to this album, a lot of these songs I'm not really wild on. I don't feel like they suck. They're just not good.
They're like, not Testament.
They're not, it's yeah, and even if it was another band, it would just be a bland album. It's just not good. And I hate saying that because I could at least maybe forgive it if I like imagine myself hearing it as another band. And that doesn't even save it for me. But yet at the same time, it's not a terrible album. It's not like this polarizing listen. They didn't sell out. They didn't become the Black Album. It's just not a good
They were borderline,
album.
In my opinion, anyways.
This album was just not good, period. So yeah, for me, number 11, favorite song, Electric Crown. What's your ranking and your thoughts on this?
I remember when this was coming out, I was kind of stoked. I was like, oh shit, New Testament album. You know, one of my favorite bands at the time, and it's just like, and I heard Electric Crown, as everybody did first, like, okay, this could be kind of good, whatever. And then I got the album and I heard it, I'm like, that's really the only good song on here. I mean, As the Seasons Gray is decent, as is Let Go of My World, but like you said, they don't really hit you with a punch. You're just like, yeah, that was okay. Just average, mediocre, nothing special. It still had the Testament sound only because of Chuck Billy's voice. Because he's always had a distinct voice in the early days and in the modern days.
Yeah, credit for that.
For my ranking, this is number 12.
Woo! So I'm near the bottom. You are the bottom.
Yeah, this is the bottom of the barrel for me. You've heard me make comments about some of their other albums. But they're still better than this. This was just, like I said, and I'm sorry to interrupt your thought process like I do, but this was borderline sellout. Like, boy, it was this close. And I think this, again, might have come down to label interference. Because if they were proud of this record, they'd play more than one song live.
Well, funny you say that. That's what Chuck, I sent you that picture.
Yeah.
Of him wanting to do a front-to-back tour because they're doing reissues of that album because they apparently have control of their entire earlier catalog with Atlantic, which, that's cool. I'll give them credit for that. That's cool that they actually have that control. But I'm not excited at the prospect of the Ritual front to back. That doesn't excite me at all.
No, you go and do something like The Legacy,
which they've done several times.
Yeah, same with New Order.
Same with the New Order. Yeah.
Or even go and do Souls of Black. Dude, I would see that front, full, a show of just that in order, of that album. I'm sure they'd throw in a couple other tracks here and there, but
of course they would. Yeah.
But the Ritual, no, I don't know, man.
Oh, I know. Please. Don't.
It's going to be real weird hearing you guys bust out Return to Serenity live. Because anytime I've seen it, and I've seen them like 7 or 8 times, they've never played any of the 3 ballads.
Yeah,
Never.
see, that's a problem. Like when you think about all the Testament sets, I've seen them open shows, I've seen them be direct support for shows, and I've seen them headline. And in none of those set of circumstances, I've seen them outdoors, I've seen them indoors, I've seen them in the afternoon, I've seen them at night. Not one situation can I see or hear any of that and think, okay, these songs work in that live setting. I can even take songs I'm not really wild about, but think, okay, does this at least go over to a crowd live? I
Yeah.
don't see it doing that way.
No.
Even for a heavy metal crowd, I don't see this.
No,
working.
because they actually get the crowd gets pumped up for them. They have a hand in it, but their music gets that crowd up and going. And to turn around and break that with one of their ballads, and don't get us wrong, folks, they're good songs, all three of the ballads. But Testament isn't a band. If you go and listen to their first album and their what people would call their comeback album, and then listen to the ballads, you're gonna be like, how is this the same band?
I can hear a little bit of it, but at the same time, it's
They're
definitely
good ballads,
it's
but
a
Testament isn't a
departure.
ballad band.
Yeah, they have a place for them, the occasional ballad, aka the ballad.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not something that they should become known for. It shouldn't be the
Yeah.
expectation. It should be the exception. But
Mhm.
anyways, let's get to Low, because this is a wild card album. And from what I've talked to for Testament fans, so Low is the 6th album, and for me, this is number 6. So bring
Okay.
it back to what I was saying with Low. It feels like this is depending on who you're asking. Low seems to be very mixed amongst people. For me, I am of the stats there. I love this album. Now it's still on Atlantic Records, but it's the first album without Alex Skolnick and without Louis Clemente. Exit those guys. Enter John Tempesta and James Murphy, who, in my opinion, are absolutely stellar additions to this band.
Yes.
So the sound is a bit more on the groove side, like the Ex-Hoarder Pantera thing. Now, in my opinion, they kind of do it a bit better. You start to get some of the teasings, too, of Chuck Billy starting to unleash, let's just say, the growl that starts to become very prominent in later releases. I feel like there's a lot of strong tracks, and I'm very fortunate to have heard Dogface Gods, Trail of Tears, and of course the title track live. But for me, where my money goes, my personal favorite song, it would be All I Could Bleed. That song is a banger. I love it. I want to mollywop the shit out of someone when I hear All I Could Bleed. So I like this album, and for me, this album's it depends on who you ask type. So Imperitus, your ranking and your thoughts on Testament's 6th album, Low.
I would I'll get my ranking out of the way first.
Yeah.
Also trying to remember where I placed everything already. I would say this was my number 5.
Oh, you're higher than me. Okay.
Yeah,
be
because
lower. No pun intended, but go on.
Yeah, because I did 6, 1, 2, 6, 4, and 12. All right. This was definitely my height of my digging into the death metal scene, like the British death metal scene, the Swedish death metal scene, Florida, all that stuff, like just getting into all these bands. Like at the time, like my favorite bands were like Carcass and Bolt Thrower and Morbid Angel. And then this comes out, I'm like, all right, this isn't bad. This is pretty good. Hearing Low and Dogface Gods is like, oh wow, okay, they got heavy again. That's fucking good to hear.
And heavy.
Well, heavy. Well, I would say heavy again because coming off the Ritual.
Yeah.
Dogface Gods, Low, All I Could Bleed, like you said. The fact they have a hentai title in there is one of the names. If you didn't know, Roku Ketsu Doji is also called Legend of the Overfiend. Look it up sometime. You're gonna sit there and go, "Oh, what the fuck." Okay. It's one of those tentacles and everything.
Okay.
So the fact that they did that, I'm like, all right, neat. But yeah, it's good, but it's not what I really want from a Testament album.
Okay.
A good switch up from the Ritual for sure. You really, that was my number 12. You can't get much worse than that. So, but yeah, if you do like the more heavier scenes like death metal and black metal and thrash wasn't your gig, yeah, check Low out. You might find it be more, to your taste.
The album artwork is so
Yes.
90s.
And props for mentioning Ex Hoarder.
Oh, dude, I know better. I'm a better man than that. Come on. Come on, Imperitus.
I know. Hey, you surprised me with Demolition Hammer, so
See, that's where we bonded. Anyways,
it was actually
album number 7, Demonic. And for me, this album is demonically dead last at number 12.
Really?
Oh, dude, this album is awful.
We just had a conversation about this album.
Awful. And here's the thing. Okay, so at the time I said, I don't think this album is as bad as people give it credit for. I went back to it and I resent it more than ever. And I like death metal. I like death metal. There's not one song, not even Demonic Refusal. And I should like this album. It's got Gene Hoglan on the drums.
The drumming was good. You can't really. It was
good. There's hooks, but there's not one song that I like gravitated towards. And Chuck Billy, I love your growling voice. I like when you do the heavier style, but doing a whole album of it does not suit this band. It's kind of like this is like The Ritual. They're trying to be another genre, and it doesn't work for them. It's one thing when you lean into a bit for a song or even a few songs, but doing a whole album to it was just overkill. I don't have a favorite song, period. For me, this is like when Danzig put out Black Acid Evil. This is a please get this trash out of here. I don't want to hear it ever again. And I didn't like Demonic back then. I just thought it was just overblown out of proportion. Now I could see where the resentment comes from. So maybe I was just going into it initially with rose-colored glasses. Bro, I took that shit off, and my resentment towards this album is strong. Anyways, I'm going to shut up now. I want your ranking and your thoughts on the 7th album, Demonic.
Well, like I said, we had a conversation about both this album and the Danzig album he mentioned. Go and look at one of I think it was the first video for Bonded by Metal, and we discussed 5 albums from bands we liked that we disliked.
And I hate that album from Danzig.
Yeah. So for me, this is my number 11.
Okay.
I find the Ritual to be that much more insulting.
Wow.
Because there's a song on here I actually really do like. Oh, and that's The Burning Times.
Okay.
Because that actually to me has a damn good groove.
Uh-huh.
It's definitely brutal, as they tried being brutal on this album and only pulled it off in certain parts, if you want to say sparingly. It's kind of like, we have a guy, was James Murphy still playing with him at this point?
I think he stepped out and they had like Glenn Alvades. If you're watching, dude, I apologize for butchering your name. I think it was like Glenn Alvades. I gotta relook at the name, but I remember
because I think
it was a different name on
if James Murphy was still there, who at the time was known for playing in death metal bands.
Obituary,
Death, Disincarnate. So I think if he was still there, that would have maybe helped this transitional idea of leaning more into death metal, because I was starting to get on the upswing a little bit. It was about this time that about 97, close to it probably, seeing Cannibal Corpse in a mainstream movie, not as a gag.
Yeah, portrayed seriously.
Yeah, and you know what I'm referring to. True, they made the fans look like retards.
And also the main character, but that's fine because you're still being respectful towards the music.
Yeah, and for people who don't know what I'm talking about, Cannibal Corpse was in the first Ace Ventura movie.
I've never heard of that movie.
Shut up, Nick. But yeah, I do. Other than The Burning Times, everything else in this album is just whatever. I don't care.
Let's just get to The Gathering. I don't want to talk about Demonic. Can we move on, please?
Absolutely, because The Gathering's a damn fine album.
Okay, so The Gathering, the 8th album. This was 1999. So the 8th album, the last of the 20th century output. And this is, for me, this is my number 1 album
Nice.
This is the one for me. Like, this is my.
Was it the first one you heard?
No.
Okay.
It was not. We'll get into that later. Banger after banger after banger. This has Steve DiGiorgio on bass. James Murphy is back on the guitar. Dave Lombardo of Slayer is on the drums. And you could say this is a return to form, if you will. You still get some of the heavier sounds that they were teasing with Low and more so in Demonic, but you still had the memorable melodies that we grew up and loved them for with the much earlier albums. If I had to, the shill side of me says my favorite song is the entire album, but the more objective listener says I'm going to have to go True Believer. True Believer is such a banger of a song. I love it. It's so damn good. And there's just so many catchy melodies, and the heaviness is just, I'm so happy that the few times I caught them, even though I didn't grow up on this album when it came out, I'm so lucky that when I've caught them, they've actually played like a fourth of this album. So I'm really lucky in that regard that I've even caught some of these songs. And one of the times was with Dave Lombardo on the drums. So I felt even more lucky for that. Yeah, got Dave Lombardo, DiGiorgio, Eric Peterson, Chuck Blair. So I got
when I saw him, DiGiorgio wasn't there. When I saw him, Skolnick had been back.
Okay, yeah. I had with Skull. So I got 4.
And the drummer I had, you're going to sit there and go, no shit, Paul Bostaff.
Oh yeah, Formation. Formation.
And I remember him. People were like, "Oh, I remember, playing with Slayer." Da, da, da. He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh, I remember him from Forbidden." He goes, "You come stand next to me. You know your shit."
Yeah.
Because nobody, it's just like everybody's like, "Oh, Slayer."
Exodus. Was it Temple of the Damned or Shovel-Headed? No, I think it was Temple of the Damned. It was either that or Shovel-Headed Kill Machine.
Yeah, he played drums.
On. Yeah. So,
nice guy. Real nice guy.
Very nice. I talked to one too. Very nice guy. But anyways, those are my thoughts on The Gathering. It's my number one. It's one of my favorite albums of all time. One I will continually come back to. And I've come back to it again, even after I did my ranking. That's how much I'm like, no, I'm just going to listen to The Gathering again. But enough of me, because I'm just going to become a shill. And I've been very good about not being a shill for 7 straight albums. So let's put the shilling away. Let's Imperitus have his ranking and his thoughts on The Gathering.
With this album, I remember a buddy of mine coming over. He goes, "Oh, hey, I got the New Testament record." I was like, all right. After Demonic. And it's like, okay. He's like, no, you got to hear this. And he popped it in, and DNR comes on. I was like, oh, they're back. They're back being Testament again. And it, like you said, killer album, front to back. It's my number 3.
Oh, nice.
There's so many good songs on here. DNR is such a good opener. Powerful, fast, thrashy. Just, this is the way you kick off an album. Kind of like how you have, you're going to hate me for this, the opening track on The New Priest.
Oh, I love The New Priest.
Right, but the opening track on that
sets
a great tone for the album.
It does. I agree on that. Yeah, Panic Attack really does set the tone for what you can expect out of the album. I would agree on that. Yeah.
Another killer track on here is Down for Life.
Oh, yeah.
Down for Life, Legions of the Dead. Because they also, with Legions of the Dead, in my opinion, they kind of tap back into like their first album lyrical material. A little bit more of the supernatural type stuff. We'll go back and look at Burnt Offerings or Alone in the Dark, The Haunting. So, but yeah, and I remember seeing them on this tour, and it was just like, God damn. Just, they are to this day probably one of the best bands I've ever seen live. Not just how great they still sound live, but they put on a good show. They're fucking loud. Probably one of the loudest bands between them and Cannibal Corpse, to be honest. And also, I've met Chuck Billy a couple times at the same place. Like I said, Paul Bostaff, Eric Peterson, all nice guys. Out of all of them, Chuck was really fucking cool when I was talking to him. Like, really cool guy. So, but yeah, this kind of reignited my, appreciation and love of Testament. It's like, cool, they're back. I was like, oh, maybe thrash is going to make a comeback. And in those early 2000s, it kind of sort of did.
I think it depends on the band. The genre as a collective whole, I'd say not so much. But I think what makes this album so much more exceptional is not just the quality, but the time it came out. Because you remember, new metal
Yeah.
was at its peak, and
Yep.
the death metal stuff, black metal stuff, the melodic death, whatever, the grind, that was all a lot more underground, super successful in its own regard, but definitely not mainstream. And for a
No.
mainstream band like Testament, or more mainstream compared to those bands, we could say,
Right.
um, it
Oh,
was
I
a
would guarantee a
successful
lot more
album.
people have heard of Testament compared at the time to something like Burzum or Marduk
Yeah, oh, of course. But anyways,
or Bolt Thrower.
yes,
To throw a death metal
with the
band in there.
Gathering, the fact that a lot of those bands, a lot of their peers, let's just say Exist was not putting out good albums,
I think
Anthrax
that's
was
what
not
this.
putting out good
Oh,
albums,
Anthrax. No,
Death Angel
they're
weren't
still not
even a
putting out.
band anymore. Forbidden
Still.
had an awful album in the late 90s too. Razor did too with Decibels. Actually, it wasn't awful, it just wasn't good. But you get the point. There was a lot
Yeah.
of these thrash bands who weren't putting out good albums. It was nice to see a band who, throughout the wave that was the interesting 90s, be the exception, say, we're going to put out a strong album. And for a lot of long-time fans who come from, like Imperitus here, the New Order era or the Legacy era, to hold the Gathering in that high of regard, I feel like that speaks more volumes about guys like them, because by the time the Gathering comes out, from when you got into this band much, much earlier on,
Oh
for
yeah,
you
it
to
was good.
hold an album that far along in such a high regard says a lot about how, well, for lack of a better word, what a strong testament to the band this album
That was
was.
going to happen at least once tonight from one of us. I knew it. But well, you know what it is to me? It's that same style of the Ritual and the New Order, but or the Legacy. I'm sorry, ugh, the Ritual. God, how could I do that? But it's that same style, but with a more modern sound. I know with a lot of other stuff, when we talk about music and media, when we use modern, we kind of have a derogatory tone to it. But in this case, it's improved sound quality. You know, digital stuff was being used a bit more in the metal scene. You know, and not to the extent where it is now, where everything's so super clean and polished. But you know, it has that same vibe. It has that same sound, at least to me. Just if we cut out, say, a few of those albums in between New Order, not all of them, but a couple of them, if you take your pick, and you can see it would have been a bit more of a natural evolution, because that period from Practice to Demonic, they were kind of all over the place with their sound and style.
Yeah.
And nothing irritates me more than when a band has a sound and they have a style that's all unto their own and unique, and then they change it. And I don't mean improve on, get better sound quality or improve. I mean completely change it.
Yeah, I get that. Oh, trust me, I get that, my dude.
A couple of bands I used to really, really, really like did that. I'm like, I'm fucking done with you.
That will have to be an outstanding video for another video, and
The
we're gonna
video I
record
referenced
that.
earlier, actually, the one where I bring this
Yeah.
up at the end because one of the bands I'm referring to is Dimmu Borgir. Love their first two albums. Anything after that, it's like, oh, you're just stereotype black metal. Cool.
So, after a long 9 years after The Gathering came out, was an underground success. A lot happened. Chuck Billy got cancer. Once again, lineup changes were a thing, and Chuck Billy survived cancer. A big thrash show happened to help raise money for his cancer. I'm glad he recovered. But then things started swinging even more up. First, Chuck Billy survived. Hell yeah. And then Alex Skolnick rejoined. Greg Christian rejoined. And for a brief moment in time, Louis Clemente rejoined. Unfortunately, he didn't stick around too long. But, however,
Due
by
to
the
health
time,
issues.
yes, 2008 rolls around, they get Paul Bostaff on the drums, and they come their first album in 9 years, aka their comeback, which you could say it's a comeback not in terms of quality, but comeback after everything that they were dealing with on a more personal, because The Gathering was a great album. So the Formation of Damnation was the album that I guess you could say in a way started me on Testament, because it was the first time I caught them on tour for an album. So my first show, it was 2008. I didn't know what I was doing this morning. I was working at a Borders bookstore at the time. And I remember getting out of a shift, and a buddy of mine named Jake said, "Hey, what are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, I don't know, man. I don't know what I'm going to do today." He's like, "Oh, you want to go see Testament?" I was like, "I don't think I've actually listened to Testament, even though I've heard that name being thrown around for many years now from bands that I like. He's like, okay, well, good. Now you have plans. I was like, well, I don't got money. He's like, okay, we'll go get money. I'm like, okay, fine, Jake, I'll go get money. So I lined up a bunch of like albums and DVDs of stuff I didn't listen to or watch anymore, and I traded in for cash at FYE at the mall, and actually got just enough to cover for a ticket. We bolted down to this area in the middle of nowhere in Illinois for this thing called Power Fest. And that was my discoverance to Testament. And I was blown away
They're great
from the
live.
show. Oh, I know. They did like 18 or 19 songs. And I remember it very clearly. They did 3 songs for this album. More Than Meets the Eye,
Yep.
The Evil Has Landed, and Henchman Ride they did from this album. And for me, now that's my live story about them and my discovery. Oddly enough, it's going to get weird here. You know, my discovery album-wise, even though the live show is my proper discovery, this album's number 7. And so don't take it as a diss. Listeners out there, I like this album. Now, my problem is after Henchman Ride, I feel like the album could have just ended after that because I feel like you had a lot of strong songs. And then the last 4, they're not bad, but they're just fine compared to the rest of the album. Now, that said, 1 through 7 is just banger after banger after banger after banger. Like, I would even go as far as to say 1 through 7 is on par with The Gathering. I actually would say it's the last 4 that bring it down for me to number 7. But my favorite song, though, is definitely Henchman Ride. So, number 7, favorite song, Henchman Ride. This was my gateway album. Imperitus, your score, your thoughts.
For me, it's number 4.
Ooh, okay.
Because as I said with The Gathering, it was an evolution of their sound. They took what they did with The Gathering and improved it. They didn't really change much, but they improved it. Like you said, those last 4 tracks, I don't mind Fear or Afterlife. They're actually kind of cool.
They're not bad. They're actually,
but
on
Leave
their
Me
own,
Forever,
they're fairly good.
Yeah. Like you said, Henchman Ride, killer fucking track. The Persecuted Won't Forget. That's personally my personal favorite on that album because they played it once when I saw them, and holy fuck,
so good.
Oh, so good. More Than Meets the Eye is fantastic. The title track. But yeah, I mean, if they put out the albums, the Legacy, the New Order, The Gathering, and then Formation of Damnation, it would have been a clear evolution of sound, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I agree on that. Yeah, it was Paul Bostap's one and done album with the band, but he put on a really strong performance on the album. And I'm really fortunate that I caught the band touring for this album 3 times.
Caught them twice.
So, Power Fest, then they did a headliner and a tour in 2009. And then in 2011 as direct support for Anthrax. So I caught 3 shows of them touring for this album. But obviously, very notable album. Even with my criticisms aside, I still love it, and I still go back to it to this day. But let's get to the 10th album. I feel like we're going to have a really interesting conversation on Dark Roots of Earth. So, Dark Roots of Earth, you ready for this? I'm going to go to number 5, actually, for Dark Roots of Earth. I actually hold this album in high regard, so high, I would actually go as far as to say it's my favorite of the 2000s era Testament. And this is the first album back with Gene Hoglan on the drums. I like to think of it as a heavier version of Practice What You Preach, because you get some of the blasting in songs like Native Blood, True American Hate, and then you got an all-around ballad like with that album having, Practice having the ballad. This one has Cold Embrace, which I actually really enjoy. There's songs like Man Kills Mankind that has some explosive drumming. It was the last one with Greg Christian, really unfortunate. But my favorite song, my personal favorite, and I feel like they never played live, was the middle track, A Day in the Death. I love this song. It bums me out to my knowledge that they never played it live. I actually go as far as to say I like every song on this album. I really do. So number 5 for me. Where are you at on this one, Imperitus?
This one didn't. It's not a bad record. by any stretch of the imagination. Having gone back and listened to it, my opinion hasn't really changed that much. It didn't. Only a couple of tracks really grabbed me. And again, maybe it's because my tastes have changed. But Testa's again still one of my favorite bands, so I don't really factor that in too much. But I do like the title track, "Dark Roots of Earth." The track you mentioned, "The Day and the Death," is fucking killer. Native Blood is also, and "Rise Up" isn't too bad. I like Native Blood probably the most on the record, but for me it's number 8, like I said.
Okay. 5 and 8. I like that. Okay. Well, let's get to the last 10 years. We're already here. The 11th album, Brotherhood of the Snake. So this is 2016. This is around the spring or summer, I think, that this one came out. And this is a very complicated one for me. So the Brotherhood, now for this album, I'm going to go with number 10. And this is going to be really conflicting because this was hard to rank. This was very tough because this song, the title track, the first song, in my opinion, is a perfect song. It is one of those albums where when I first heard the song prior to the album coming, I was highly anticipating this album. I thought this is going to be the best Testament album. This song fucking kills on all fronts. Then I heard the rest of the album, and I like the Pale King, but then the rest of the album happened, and it is the definition of a mixed bag. There's some really strong songs. Brotherhood of the Snake was reduced down to an EP. I would call it an incredible EP of some of their best songs. But it's got this album with really outstanding songs, with some half of them not so much outstanding at all. I wouldn't even call them like good. They're just kind of like there. Strong mixed bag. Cannabusiness has got to have some of the absolute worst lyrics I've ever heard from Chuck Billy, which is a weird thing to say because he's written a lot of my favorite lyrics. And once again, it's weird because there's some outstanding performances individually from guys like Gene Hoglan, Steve DiGiorgio. Like, this has a strong lineup on this album, but the songs are just hit or miss for me. So it was really tough. Like, I was back and forth in this one because there are some songs on here overall that are stronger than on Souls of Black, but there's songs on here that are weaker than that on Souls of Black. So I just decided overall, I'm just going to go at number 10, right under Souls of Black. What are your thoughts, Imperitus, on Brotherhood of the Snake?
Like you said, I heard the first track. I was like, I didn't have the same reaction as you did, but I was like, oh, okay, this could be a good album. Let's, like you said, let's see where it goes from here. I'm glad nowadays you have bands put out more than like one single from an album. Like I said, I've already heard 2 tracks off the new album, and they were both good. It's better than getting the one track for a single and go, oh, this album is going to be great, and you get the rest of the album, you're like, oh God. This is also my number 10.
Oh, we're on number 10. Okay.
The only songs that I really liked on here was the title track and like the Pale King. Other than that, it's just like,
right, dude.
I know you guys can do better.
Yes, it's
I
so
know
weird
you can.
that this.
It's like, trust me, I understand you guys are getting old. They're older than I am. I get it. And your lives are probably a lot rougher than mine. Touring and all that kind of shit.
Yeah, it's weird.
With the lineup that they had, they could have put out something so much better. It's always a disappointment when you see a lineup in a band. You're like, oh, holy shit. Especially when each who they are, what their past work has been, what they're also currently working on aside from this. If they're just, being a session member for the album and the tour or what have you. It's like, yeah, no, it's like, guys, you are one of the bands in the current day metal scene and have been for pretty much the majority of your existence as a band. You can do better.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And I'm sorry to say that, if any member of Testament actually hears this, highly unlikely, I'm not insulting you guys. It's
all of love.
Yeah, I'm a fan. I want one of my favorite bands to be putting out killer albums at every opportunity that they can. I can understand a song or two not hitting for me,
Yeah, it
It's
has
even on
to.
some of my favorite albums from some of my favorite bands. There's always going to be a track where I'm like, eh.
That's where I was with the New Order. I found every song outside the cover an absolute banger. I
Mm-hmm.
genuinely love every other song on the New Order. And you know what? That's fine because those songs are that strong for me. If you took out that track, I probably would have made a tie, if not number one, even over The Gathering. That's how much I love the rest of the New Order.
Right. But this, like I said, yeah, number 10, when I went back to listen to it, I was like, as much as I hate to say it, I was trying to get through it as quick as I could.
Yeah,
I
same.
was out for a
Same.
walk in one of my in the development I live next to. Just, walking through the development at night, just thinking how I'm going to do this and some other stuff and listening to the albums. And I got to this one, I'm like, I listened to like half the song skip.
Yeah.
Other than the opening track, other than that, it's half the song skip. It's like,
This
so I'm gonna
is
listen.
a
It's one of those albums when you hear it, you're like, you know what? I do want to listen to Testament, just not this album.
yeah. It's a weird one in the sense that when you hear the song that they were putting out to preview the album, they got you excited, but yet somehow almost the rest of the album actually wasn't good. Usually 2 or 3 songs give you a good idea. This is one of those rare ones where it actually was end up being more misleading, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
More that the rare
I've had that
exception to
happen
being
with a few
misleading.
albums over the years.
Okay, dude. This is it. The 12th and final album. So we'll give out our scores and our thoughts, and then we'll say our rankings out loud from uh least to greatest, and we'll call it a day. So number 12, their most recent album, Titans of Creation, the last one with Gene Hoglan on the drums. This was already
Who'd
five
they
and a
get now?
half years ago. This youngster named like Chris Dovis or something like that. I don't know if that's how it's pronounced, but his name's Chris. He's a youngin,
Oh,
super
okay, okay.
youngin.
So they just
Um,
okay. That's cool. That's cool.
you can see and hear more Dragon Lord influence popping up. You're starting to creep in a little bit with Brotherhood. It definitely picks up more so in Titans of Creation. Now, I do dig the artwork. However, this album to me is basically just number 9. It's a slight improvement over Brotherhood of the Snake. My criticisms and my pros, this is very conflicting because some songs, even good ones, a lot of them overstay their welcome. I feel like this album could have gone on a diet and trimmed down a few minutes off of each of them, and it would have been a stronger albums. Now, the worst song on here is easily Symptoms. This is them definitely playing to the Lamb of God crowd. I get it. There's some crossover in the fan bases. I know Alex Skolnick did a solo on one of the albums. I know Chuck Billy did a vocal performance on one of their songs. I know they did a tour together. But Exodus did the same thing to the most recent albums. I don't like when bands like Exodus and Testament make their Lamb of God type of songs. And I'm not even saying that as a diss towards Lamb of God. This is more so, guys, this type of sound doesn't work for you. I'm the same guy who praised Testament for trying groove with low, but
Low.
yet
Yeah.
here it was not working for me with this album. It doesn't work. And I hate saying that. But once again, though, there's some really strong songs, and there's some really not so much. Night of the Witches, Killer. I think that's a
Mm-hmm.
good song, but my favorite song is Curse of Osiris. That is ooh wee. Now, unfortunately, it's at the near end of the album, so you gotta get to there. But boy, is it worth it when you get there. But once again, number 10, a step above Brotherhood, but not number 9. I meant to say with Titans. Titans is number 9. It's a step above Brotherhood, but not saying much. Where's your ranking and your thoughts on Titans of
Considering
Creation?
it's the only number I have left, it's the same as yours, number 9. Like you said,
Wow.
yeah, I actually listened to it for pretty much like the second, maybe third time when for this, and I was like, it's better than Brotherhood, but eh. Like you said, Night of the Witch is killer. Curse of Osiris is also killer. Symptoms is very just no. And that could also be you may not have dissed Lamb of God. I'm not a fan. Not a fan at all. Nothing against them guys. Do your thing, make your money, make your music.
Yeah.
I'm happy for you, genuinely. But it's just like you said, some bands it really does come back to when me saying when bands have their own sound, improve it, don't change it. Don't if you want to try something completely new and different, either A, do a side project. You have enough clout and fame within the metal community for a label to be willing to be like, oh, Chuck Billy and Alex Skolnick and Eric Peterson have a side project. I mean, really, do you think Eric Peterson shopped around too long for a deal for his black metal project?
I don't know who wrote Symptoms. I never looked into it. I should. I will be shocked if it was Eric Peterson who wrote, because this seems so unlike him, this song.
Yeah.
Maybe this was Chuck and Alex, because I know Alex is not as much of a metalhead as he once was. And I know Chuck has, obviously, he loves a lot of those type of bands. So I'm just guessing here. Maybe I'm wrong. Go ahead and fact check me. Maybe it was Eric Peterson with this song, but knowing his influences and knowing that he has a Dragon Lord album, his second one he put out a few years ago, and him not being known for writing these type of songs, unless this is an outlier from him, this doesn't seem like an Eric Peterson song.
And the other option, if you want to do something kind of new and different, put out an EP.
Agreed.
I think agreed. EP, in this day and age, I think I've heard people like, oh, I don't like EPs. I'm like, why?
I agree.
Because
especially for a band like this.
It does, like, the person was also saying, I think it might have been Pope that was kind of complaining about it. Maybe not. I could be wrong on that. But I'm like, dude, that's how I discovered a lot of black metal bands. Because back in the day, getting, imports, you got to remember, all this stuff was still getting imported from Europe. It wasn't like a lot of labels over here were licensing and releasing shit. That eventually happened. But in the the early days, at least, of me discovering black metal, those CDs were fucking expensive. So if you only had so much money to spend and you want to check out some new bands, you go and pick up a couple EPs. And in some cases, a lot of those were side projects of the other bands. That was a big thing at the time. Case in point, how many fucking side projects Fenris of Darkthrone had or has. So, yeah, I don't have a problem with bands experimenting. And Testament has done that through their career.
To mixed results.
To mixed results. But in some cases, if you're going to try something that's really not what you're known for, put out an EP.
I feel like for the last two albums, they would have been really strong EPs, because they could have taken the songs that I liked from each of those albums, and now we'll remember them for being outstanding EPs, and they could have trimmed out the fat from the songs that I didn't like. They would both benefit from being EPs each. And I want Formation and Dark Roots to stay out, but Brotherhood and Titans, in my opinion, should have been EPs. Will we feel the
or
same
combine them into one album? Take the best tracks off of both.
Yeah,
but it probably would have been hard because different band members,
different eras, different things they're going through. So I feel like two EPs would have been the more ideal choice too,
or even split it into 3 albums.
Yeah. So
shorter albums, sometimes they work.
Sometimes they do. That is our rankings for all 12 Testament albums. Parabellum comes out this Friday. This man here on my left has heard the 2 songs. He likes them. I've not listened to Shadow People.
It's pretty good.
I've listened to Infanticide AI. I personally love it. I'm really stoked. I'm so stoked for it that it's the first Testament album I will own on vinyl. And what made me order it on vinyl was because the artwork from Eleron Cantor is painted. And for me, that was what solidified the deal. I'm like, it's painted. It's not digital. Okay, I'm buying it just for that. Even if the album somehow ends up not being good, even if it's somehow, which I don't see it being the case, even if it's somehow worse than Demonic, I will always love that cover, which I don't think it's going to be. I think it's going to be at least better than at least a third of their catalog, judging by how much I love the song. Once again, I've been misled before, but something tells me I'm feeling good about this.
Like I said, I've heard both Infanticide AI and Shadow People. I actually like Shadow People a little more.
Oh, okay.
It's got that Testament sound where they have the thrashy bits, but when Chuck Billy starts singing, it kind of goes into a more mid-paced, but still has that thrashy punch to it. And again, it deals with supernatural shit, and it's October. It's that time of year, kind of fits, hearing it. So
yeah, the timing is really good. Yeah, I can't wait to hear it. And of course, Bonded by Metal listeners, we will be reviewing that album as well. But what do you agree with? What do you strongly disagree with on our album rankings? And yes, I don't have to ask you. You're going to put your rankings in the comments anyway. So please sound off on your rankings and why ours are great or why they suck. And thank you for watching this video. And you lay down your souls to the gods rock and roll. We'll see you for the Testament Parabellum review.